That's just sports, baby.
Crowd goes wild. Strawberry ice, bringing fire and style. Reds, Bengals, Bearcats, all in my zone. This is my stage, my mic, my throne. Boom, like a hammer, I'm breaking the game. Strawberry ice, you're gonna know my name. Sports Talk Thunder, hear the podcast roar. Cincy's line is kicking down the door. Step into the ring where the passion ignites. Talking sports all day and all night. From the field to the court to the roaring stands. Strawberry ice with the world in my hands. Boom, like a hammer, I'm breaking the game. Strawberry ice, you're gonna know my name. Sports Talk Thunder, hear the podcast roar. Cincy's line is kicking down the door.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, Iceman Jeff Turnipole. And as always, I bring you sports from a West Side point of view right here from the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio. And as always, I'll come to you live from the Ice Cave. And the Ice Cave is brought to you by Priority Lawn and Landscaping. You guys need your grass cut, or you just don't want to cut your grass. You want your flower beds mulched, weeded out, I don't know, shrubbery planted, anything. And I mean anything. Lawn and landscaping required. Think Priority Lawn and Landscaping. Actually, don't think it. Call them at 513-430-6114. That's 513-430-6114. You can also follow them on Facebook. I always recommend that so you can see their work, videos, pictures, all that cool stuff. When you call them, tell them Ice sent you. Also, next week, it's coming up. Like I said, I don't really consider myself a celebrity. Jim Kelly is more of a celebrity than I am, but I am in this, the 35th annual Celebrity Softball Classic, July 17th at the Florence Y'all Stadium. Get your tickets at Celebrity Softball Classic. Hopefully, you guys want to come and show up and support the charities for this and watch me hopefully not make or embarrass myself or hurt myself would be great because I'm coming out of softball retirement. I haven't played, I think it's been like 16 years since I played softball. So this could be interesting. What is up to everybody in the chat? We got Brad in there. Brad, you're right. I know it's year 3 of the Bearcats. I typed in the wrong thing when I made the thumbnail, but thanks for telling me that, and I fixed it. Strangers in there and Crib Keeper. What is going on? All right, so we are getting very close to Bearcat football. Neil Meyer just got back from Big 12 media day. I got Jim Kelly on the show today. Let's get to this thing. How hot is Satterfield's seat? Are they going to make a bowl game? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's get to Neil Meyer first from Bearcat Blues. Neil, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Thank God. See, live show at first he couldn't hear us, so I'm glad he can hear us now. Now, let's get to a Bearcat legend. I love having him on the show. He does a great job, him and Dan Horde, for the radio side of the broadcast. He's none other than Jim Kelly. Oh, clap, clap, clap. You see, I didn't serenade you when you come in, Jim. I did a little. Oh.
How about that? Not only do I get a serenade, you got your own theme song as well, and well, you're the celebrity. I would like to watch you play softball, though.
Yeah, it might be interesting. Well, like I said, I haven't played about like when my kids started getting into sports, or not when they started playing sports, then me playing sports went out the window. I didn't have time to do it anymore. So I haven't played, like I said, like 16 years. So
yeah, I think, Neil's different. He's a youngster, but
Neil can probably go out there and hit some bombs.
Once you get to a certain age, you give it up playing it, and you end up on podcasts like this, right?
Exactly. You just talk about it the whole time. Exactly.
We talk about it all day.
What I don't want to happen is I don't want to do what Sean Casey did, and when he was at the Savannah Bananas, and he walked and he ran to first base and he tore his hamstring off the bone. That's what I don't want to do.
I was at that game and saw that.
Were you?
I don't think he knew the rule there that, you can run as far as you want, because he got to first base. It looked like the first base coach told him, hey, you can keep running. And the minute he took off first is when you saw him reach back to that right leg. And wow, what a serious injury.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to overcome.
Yeah, see, Neil, this is what you have to look forward to when you get older. Anyway. All right, so let's get into this. We got the Big 12 Media Days. Neil, I know you just got back. Joe, you were paying attention as well. What is the big? Neil, I'll just go with you. What's your impressions? The biggest impressions of Big 12 Media Day from a Bearcats perspective?
Yeah, I think the biggest impression for Cincinnati heading into year 3 under Scott Satterfield in the Big 12 was obviously how do you replace the offensive line. I think that's something Jim and most guys who cover Cincinnati could really kind of understand. It's never easy when you lose guys like a Luke Kandra or D'Artagnan Tinsley, a John Williams, guys who were 3 and 4 year starters throughout their career. It's never easy to refill that, especially when Cincinnati had some depth issues last year. It was nice to see them go out and make the offensive line a priority. I think going out and getting a guy like Joe Cotton, who stands 6'7", 320 pounds, is as advertised. And when you see the guy enter the portal and you got offers from Alabama, Michigan, Penn State, all the big schools around the country, and then chooses to come to a school like Cincinnati where he knows he has the opportunity to come in and make an immediate impact as your left tackle, I think that is huge. And then I've been very impressed with Taron Tayo from Ball State, the MAC transfer. I mean, you saw the video of him squatting nearly 700 pounds about 2 weeks ago, and I was told by Gavin Gerhardt on Monday or Tuesday that is the quote unquote squat record for the University of Cincinnati football team, and he plans to break it. So overall, I've been very impressed with those two.
700 pounds. Hold up. I don't want to just gloss about it. 700 pounds. Now, Jim, I know back in the day, you were like 750, right? Were you? Right, exactly.
According to Gavin, he had 6 plates on each side plus 35. So if you do the math, it's close to 700 roughly.
And I'm talking about not blowing my hamstring out running to first base, and he's squatting 700 pounds. That's
what's even more impressive in the video too, where he posted doing that kind of weight. You can see Nico Palizzetti kind of spotting him, and he's like, okay, after 2, Nico's like, all right, rack it. And he's like, hell no, coach, let's go 2 more. But 700 pounds is insane. I've been very impressed with Evan Tangenstall's progression as well. I think those are 2 or 3 guys that could come in, make an immediate impact. And it sounds like from Scott Satterfield, those 3 will be starting. And it's kind of like the right tackle is your only position kind of up for grabs. It's going to be interesting to see what that might look like in fall camp here in a few weeks. But overall, the offensive line was something that needed to be addressed. And now that you go out and you make that a priority, I think that could be the one big thing that allows Brendan Sorsby to take that next step to his game there. Obviously, last year you had a great offensive line, one of the best offensive lines in the Big 12, but D'Artagnan Tinsley missed time with injury. Luke Kandra missed time with injury. There was a lot of guys who were battling injuries and weren't able to be 100% towards the end of the year. But now when you come in and you had those guys and then you have some depth behind that position, I think that is what's going to be the biggest standpoint too, because everybody knows Scott Satterfield and them like to run the football. So when you have a big offensive line up front in the trenches that's clearing some holes, it's going to be a difference maker for Cincinnati's offense this year.
There you go. All right, Jim. So what was your impressions from what you saw from the Bearcats at Big 12 Media Day?
Well, clearly what Neil just said there was 2, in my opinion, coming out of spring ball, there was 2 areas on the offensive side. So first of all, the offense has got a lot of firepower back. And Neil just went over a bunch of that. And the 2 areas I think were in question were offensive line and wide receiver. And the reason for that, in today's world with transfers, you got new guys coming in and you might look great on paper, but until you get on the field and really see them, you really don't know what you got. But I think they did a great job of answering that. And if you look at what they have coming back, and talked about Brendan Sorsby already, he had a good year last year, particularly the first half of the year, not so much when he had struggled down the stretch there. The Bearcats struggled down the stretch, but no question that he's a guy, and he, as Neil just pointed out, with a good offensive line protecting him and a good running game with that offensive line doing things up front that they need to do to get those running backs unleashed, he could have one heck of a year. And the O-line there, of course, would be the number 1, and then the wide receivers. And looking at it and watching them in the spring and seeing them live and talking to these guys, through the spring ball as well, they've done a really good job of setting it up well on paper. And honestly, they look good on the field. And so from that standpoint, I feel really good about this offense. Again, the running back with Pryor and Walker and some of the younger guys, Chance Williams and Zion Johnson, they should be solid at running back. They've got to, to use an old term, and Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside, with Walker and Pryor, those guys can really do it. So they should be fine at the running back position. Obviously, we know what's going on at the tight end position. No question with Royer, Patrick Gerd, who's kind of new, not kind of new, who's new. And they've got some depth there as well. That offensive line with Gerhardt being a solid guy, Tangisdale, Tayo, Cotton, Buford. They've got a little bit of depth there, maybe not as much as last year, as Neil pointed out. And when you lose guys to, free agency in the NFL, it's hard to replace them. And
right.
One thing that I think we maybe we'll see in the offensive line, but not at a lot of other positions anymore, as Neil pointed out, also are 2 and 3 year starters that don't transfer or aren't transferring in. So
right.
From the offensive side is the offensive side of the football, I see a really positive team here and an ability to be able to score some points. The defense is better, clearly better in a lot of positions as well. But I do think the offense is going to be able to move the football. The other things I saw, what I was able to watch on the Big 12 Media Days, what was covered on television on ESPN2, and people like Neil who put things out there, some of the interviews and some of the things going on, is that in the Big 12 made it very, very clear this year that we don't, after last year picking Arizona State as number 16 and then winning the league, we are not going to go through a vote, which would likely basically mirror the standings of last year. So I think they were right in that standpoint, and I think we'll see. I think we'll see other leagues convert to that. It's just like, why do that when you're really putting pressure on people, you're hurting people, by having them down to 15th or 16th. And Arizona State's case, good for them. They had a little chip on their shoulder. They were a much better football team than everybody thought, but they also played with that chip on their shoulder and were able to, to qualify for the college football playoffs by winning the conference championship game. So, and one other thing I will say is, is the Big 12 is not, they're not satisfied sitting around being the third league. They are
right.
very, very active and doing things that they can to be that, that move into that top 2 with the SEC and the Big 10. So I like what I see. I got to tell you, for 2 years now, being at these venues or having these teams come in to Nippert, it's a kick-ass league. It really is.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. You don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you do know what you're going to get, which is basically you're going to get punched in the mouth.
Yes.
Which I like. The American was great. But this conference is very, very different. And, from that perspective, I look forward to, being at places this year that I haven't been in the past. And also seeing teams come in here that we haven't seen come in here in the past. And, from that perspective, I think it's going to be a better year. No question the talent on the field is better for the Bearcats. I think their schedule favors them. Throw in the fact that 7 home games. There's a couple keys to really making this season successful. We can talk about those here in a bit as well.
Yeah, Big 12 is definitely big boy football. I'll put it to you that way. It's a big step up from the AAC. And you're talking about they didn't do the preseason poll, which, to be honest, I always, even growing up, I always thought the preseason poll was silly because you don't know exactly. Nobody's played a game yet, so I've always thought that was kind of silly. The Big 10, from what I know, they might are probably not doing a preseason poll as well. So I've heard that. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but that is a way I think college football is going to, because it's even harder because, like you said, you're getting a new team every year, especially
the transfer portal is so wild too.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. So, what was Coach Satz? What was his message and tone? What was he trying to set at Big 12 Media Days? Jim, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think there's a couple things. You started off the broadcast tonight with, is he on the hot seat? and honestly, I don't think he is internally. I mean, when I say that, everybody's looking at this program, okay, internally and externally, and we know what the fan base reaction is right now. And if you're on social media at all, it's not hard to know the pressure that he's under, at least from the fan base. But in John Cunningham's view, I think he looks at the progression that they've made. Now, granted, what we talked about earlier, being at 5-2 midway through the season last year, and then finishing up with 5 straight losses. That's a problem. That's a problem.
Yep.
and not getting, as you also stated, not getting that 6th win or what should have been last year 7 or 8,
Right.
To get that bowl game. I think that's an issue as well. So I look for this year that being, something that he certainly needs to accomplish. But he's 3 years into this. It's been the wild, wild west with the portal, as Neil pointed out. Everything with the NIL, and now what's going on with the with all the money issues changing and things like that. And
But
might
Deion
try to
Sanders
do some
wants to
rules
put
here
up.
down the road, maybe not. Somebody will figure out ways to break them. I think his message is, let's stay the course.
Yeah.
And I got to give him credit for this. He brings in good people. When I say good people, they're good football players, but generally football players are measured by what they do on the field, right?
Right.
Can he catch the football? Can he run the football? Can he block? Can he tackle? Can he, break the pass up? And he's got those people. He's got good coaches. They're good people. But the combination of all that needs to come together, where these good guys who, are not going to create issues, or they're going to be good, partners team-wise. They're really, really good people. And I think he wants to stay that course, and he's going to. Of course, he's going to get the best players that he can, and he's done a good job of that. So from that perspective, I think he's like, let's stay the course, and we're going to have a better year this year. The schedule's, I would call it, not easy, where I've seen where people have ranked it the easiest in the Big 12, but at the same time, going to Nebraska at Arrowhead, where that's a 2-hour drive away, doesn't make it easy. But that game, without analyzing this entire season, that's the first game of the year, of course, and that game's winnable. And if they're able to win that game, that's one that swings in your favor. And boy, that sets you up for one heck of a season. And then let's go to another first, which is Iowa State coming into Nippert in the first weekend in October, is the first conference game. And that's winnable. Now, they're good. They're very good. They're probably better than Nebraska, but they're coming to your place. And if you can win that first game against Nebraska, you can win that first league game against Iowa State. There's a whole lot else in there you're going to win. And you're going to get that game where you're not only going to a bowl game, you may be, getting up there to 7 or 8 wins. But I think Coach Satterfield does a nice job. He does a real good job. Neil and I love being around him. He doesn't restrict us from anything for the most part, unless it's some sort of internal thing. But we get really good access. He's always there for us. I work well with him and Dan Horde on his radio coaches show on Tuesday night. He's always there. So from that perspective, I think he's expecting a big year. He does probably feel the heat, no question about it. But all things being equal, I think he's expecting a really, really good year.
Now, I want to go back to that Nebraska game here, and I'll let you comment on what I asked Jim there. But that Nebraska game, and Mo Egger brought this up on my podcast last week. This could be the UCLA game that Luke Fickell had, and once he said that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because I would never forget that UCLA game. UCLA turnout wasn't as good as we thought they were at the time, but still, we came in. That's when Desmond Ritter took over, and we basically took off from there. And then we went on to the college football playoffs a couple years later. But that was, to me, the starting point. To me, that's how big this game feels for Sat, because I know that it's a home game for us. It's not. It's a road game. It's a neutral field. There's going to be no more Nebraska fans there than Bearcat fans. It's closer. It is what it is. But this is a winnable game, nationally televised. It could be a big statement moment for Satterfield, saying, "Hey, we're back. We're good." How much pressure, or I don't want to say pressure, but how much do you think that game would mean to the Bearcats of this program and Satterfield to win that, Jim?
Oh, it would be huge. And I think Mo's analogy, and, I know Dan and I have talked about the same thing. The one thing that's a little bit different now is, with all the success the Bearcats had, you mentioned Desmond Ritter coming in. So let's take he was a freshman then, redshirt freshman, I guess. But let's take those next 3 years where they had tremendous success. The expectations were a little lower at that point. And your point's a good one, Iceman, is that UCLA ended up not being as good as everybody thought they were going to be that year. But you go on the road, you're at the iconic Rose Bowl, you win that game. and it propels you into that kind of season. There's a little bit more expectations, I think, on Cincinnati, knowing that they can go toe-to-toe with Nebraska. Nobody's sitting here saying, "Oh man, it's a slam dunk win," or
it's only a 7-point game. I think Nebraska's only favored by 7 right now.
Yeah, well, that's it. I was going to say it's not Cincinnati favored by 10 or anything like that. I've seen it, early in when it first came out that they were playing at Arrowhead. I saw a couple where they had Cincinnati like 1 and 2 point underdogs, or in some cases early favorites.
Right.
But I mean, they've got some success going right now as well. So I do think it's big. Do I think he's putting this whole season on the back of that game? No, I really don't think so. But, we don't have any preseason polls for the Big Ten and the Big 12, as you just pointed out. But the week after that, and certainly weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're going to start seeing national polls. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Nebraska, even though I haven't looked at the rest of their schedule, I wouldn't be shocked to see them break into the top 25 sometime early in the year.
Right. If they lose to us, they won't.
That's for sure.
Neil, what's your thoughts on, like I said, I see Satterfield's impression and tone, and then the game week 0, I guess. Sorry, I'm gonna call it Burrowhead. It's always gonna be Burrowhead. I'm gonna just keep saying that. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, like Jim said, I think he definitely feels the pressure, but overall, like Jim has also mentioned, Scott has been great to be around, great to work with us. He's never really restricted us from anything. He's been awesome to work with. So on top of that, we had a great interaction with him out there at Media Days. We heard about Dante Corleone and his steak adventure out there. Jim, I'm sure you heard about that as well.
I did.
So yeah. What was this now? What adventure did he have?
Dante, so they went to a steakhouse. They went to Lincoln Steakhouse. Dante Corleone ate a 35-ounce ribeye and then took one to go.
What? Oh my God!
Kevin Gerhardt also ate a 35-ounce ribeye as well.
Now that's doing some work right there, man. That's what I'm talking about. I'd be in a food coma if I did that.
Oh, I would be too. There's no way.
I ate a 16-ounce ribeye my last night there for dinner, and I did not leave my pool for about 4 hours. So, but overall, he's been awesome to work with. And for Jeff, too, it's also worth noting, too, Scott's been so great. He was actually right down the road golfing here at Western Hills Country Club last week, he was telling us. So,
shoot, he should have came to my house, and then we could have done live podcasts then.
So we were out. He's been great. He's out enjoying the community. He's enjoying being in Cincinnati. So he's been awesome to work with. But, he definitely kind of feels the pressure. This hasn't been what he anticipated it to be, right, in year 3. But he feels like this is the best team he's got on paper. And he's came out. He said that multiple times at Big 12 Media Days. I think everybody kind of at Big 12 Media Days discussed the importance of retention within college football. And for Scott Satterfield to be able to bring back your quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, you bring back Gavin Gerhardt, Dante Corleone, Joe Royer, you bring back 4 key leaders. That's huge. And that says a lot about what Scott Satterfield and his staff is building at Cincinnati. So in order for that, I think that's huge. But like you guys mentioned, I think week 0 or week 1, whatever that might be, it's going to be huge. Now everyone's kind of talking like, okay, this is a big game for Nebraska. It's going to be a sellout with probably in favor of Nebraska, which 2 hours right down the road. It's kind of expected, but overall, Bearcats fans travel really well. You get an opportunity to go back to Arrowhead. Travis Kelce's probably going to be in attendance. Brian Cook's probably going to be in attendance. Both of those guys playing for the Chiefs. Jason might even be out there. There's going to be a lot of hype around Cincinnati, right? Mm-hmm. But on top of it, I think they feel that this is a big season for Cincinnati. And it starts right there with guys like Brendan Sorsby, Joe Royer, Gavin Gerhardt, Dante Corleone. But for them, you look down at the schedule, everyone's thinking this is like an easy schedule. But you look down also, if you get a win week 1 versus a Nebraska team, then you come back and you get a win in week 4 versus Iowa State there at home to kick off conference play, that there's a good chance Cincinnati could be potentially 4-0 if that happens, right? So you think about that. It's a similar situation to last year if you start off well. But there's a good chance for Cincinnati to make some noise, and especially when you guys talk about the week 4 game versus Iowa State. People forget Iowa State's going to have to replace guys like Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, who had 170 receptions a season ago, 2,500 yards, and almost 20 touchdowns between the two. And both of them went on to be top 3 round draft picks. So it's not going to be easy to replace guys like that. So Iowa State's offense might have taken a little bit of a step back. So I don't know. I'm excited for it. I'm really excited for it, but I think this team feels the pressure. We've heard how much discipline they have been under, hardest workouts. I know Gavin and Dante told us as soon as they flew back in town Tuesday night, they left at about 7. They probably got back in town around 9 o'clock. They had workouts the next morning at 4:30. So this staff is putting them through the ringer right now, to say the least, getting them in shape right there before Camp High Ground kicks off in 3 weeks. And then you have the Nebraska game about a month away. So I'm excited.
The Iowa State game, I mean, this is whether the transfer portal's in existence or it's not. One of the things you hope to catch is when a team has a lot of changeover, whether it's a new coach, whether they lose a generational quarterback, and you got new guys coming in. And as Neil pointed out, those 2 wide receivers, I'm telling you what, those guys are good. It was really, really interesting to watch them both get drafted by the same NFL team too, to see that they're going to be playing together again. But that being said, you want to catch that team as early in the year as you can, because you know Matt Campbell's a good coach, got a great coaching staff. By week 8, they're going to be, I'm telling you what, and you got Rocco Beck, you got their quarterback, who's, one of the top 3 or 4 in the Big 12, if they did kind of rank them preseason, which seemed like everybody did that every day. I was reading another poll where we're going to rank the Big 12 quarterbacks from top to bottom, And it's what happens with that. And Brendan Sorsby, who's very, very good, he ended up where Cincinnati would end up in the rankings, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere right in that middle. But anyway, that being said, you got Iowa State where you want them. If they're going to be a good team by the end of the year. And there's other teams on the schedule that you're catching at good times, or in a couple of different cases, you're catching them at Nippert, where you don't want to play those guys on the road, but you're happy to have them come into Cincinnati. And I think that Iowa State game is going to be a key one too. But no question, the Nebraska game, all the eyes on the program. First game of the year, national television, nothing else to do on a Thursday night before Labor Day. Let's watch some college football. Woohoo! And
exactly.
It should be a good football game. It really should be.
I can't wait.
It's great to mention too about that Iowa State game, because if you reverse time about a year ago, Cincinnati played Arizona State in week 2 of the Big 12 season, and look what happened, right? They take down the reigning champs of the Big 12 at the right time, and that kind of built some momentum for them, but then things went the other way. But it's great, like you mentioned, to have that opportunity to play a team like Iowa State early in the season, because Iowa State's probably going to be the strongest team on that schedule. Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, if they can figure out how to put things together after their 6-game winning streak to end the 2024 season. But overall, to have that opportunity at Nippert Stadium early, and they fared well versus Iowa State 2 years ago until the second half. And a thing that's also worth noting too is Brendan Sorsby mentioned that Coach Satterfield has been preaching about the mid-8 of the game, which is the final 4 minutes of the second quarter, and then the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. That's the mid-8 right there. And that's going to be the difference maker for Cincinnati this year, is how do they handle that 8-minute stretch of that ball game. So I'm excited. Week 4, like we said, it could be a game where it plays into Cincinnati's favor like it did last year versus Arizona State, or it could be something that they kind of see what the Big 12 is all about.
Now, one thing I want to get back to Sorsby and the national media perception of the Bearcats in general. Sorsby, at the first 4 games, he was a Big 12 quarterback. I was like, all right, we got ourselves a quarterback. The last 5, I don't know what happened, but it kind of seemed like he was I don't want to say afraid, but just was not throwing the ball downfield like he was. It just, I don't know, didn't see stuff right. Well, if he's hurt, well, I don't know what was going on. To me, that's the part that worried me. Do you guys see improvement in Sorsby to take that next step? Because I think he's a really good quarterback, to be honest. He just didn't prove it down the stretch with a lot of other stuff that the Bearcats didn't prove down the stretch. But do you think Sorsby will take a big step? And do you think, what's the national media perspective of the Bearcats in general? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, he had a game, the West Virginia game in particular, which was not a good one. And to me, down the stretch, it looked like he lost confidence. And he's always been a confident guy. I mean, you go those first 7 games, and even Pittsburgh included, he looked like you said, Jeff, like a Big 12 quarterback, or obviously a Power 5, top 10 type of quarterback. And we were all excited about it. And things down the stretch just, it was a little something here, a little something there. And I do believe his confidence got hurt a little bit. And he was very tentative in those particular last 4 or 5 games, maybe even the last 6. But he certainly has the talent to do it. He throws one of the best long balls that I've seen in a long time. And he's got, some good wide receivers, some good targets to throw the ball to. He's got a good number of different type of receivers to throw the ball to. And you look at, the accolades that Joe Royer's getting, which we all know what a good tight end can mean to a game.
I'd like to see him in Bengal stripes, but I'd say that they won't draft him, though.
Well, who knows?
They don't draft Bearcats for some reason. I don't know why.
I know. They're not big on tight ends early in the draft either.
Right.
We've seen all the mock polls, and Joe's been as high as the first round, the first tight end gone and then the first round. But Sorsby's clearly the case.
Yes.
Now, something that can really help him, which we know that Satterfield believes in, is running the football.
Right.
And, losing Corey Kiner is a big deal. But then you look at Tawee Walker and, I won't call him a clone of Corey Kiner because he's not exactly, but he gives you that extra yard. He makes that first guy miss type of thing. He busts through a tackle, in the A gap or the B gap and can show the speed when he needs to, might even have a little bit more than Corey had. And then, of course, Evan Pryor, he's not that guy that's going to break 6 tackles and go the distance for you, but you get him on the edge and in the passing game, boom, he's gone. So if that's hitting on all cylinders, that's going to help Sorsby's passing game big time. But the one thing that Coach Satterfield's done pretty much in his whole career, whether it was whether it was Louisville, whether it was App State, he's been pretty balanced as far as running the football and passing the football. Not necessarily in number of plays, but in yardage. And they're really good at that. And they did that last year very well as well. Not as much, again, down the stretch as they did early in the year. But Sorsby's clearly the key. Key. And I think people like him. We know that, the people that really know football, there was a lot of people after him this year, a lot of big schools.
And they kept him, which is good. I mean, that says a lot about Sat.
I agree. That means you're doing something right. And, as Neil pointed out earlier, kudos to Coach Satterfield and his staff for hanging on to those guys and he wasn't the only one. Royer, as you can imagine, and a bunch of the other guys. Gerhardt, I just love Gavin Gerhardt. Man, I know they haven't officially, I don't think, voted for captain yet, but I'm trying to think back in my 35 years, a lot of 2-year captains, but I do not remember a 3-year captain, and I think he's going to get that. And that tells you right there what kind of a guy that young man is.
Yeah, Pat also said at Media Days, Jim, that Gavin will be a 3-year captain. So he did come out with that at Media Day as well. But
I hadn't heard it officially. I had talked to Coach about it as well. And, again, even it's voted on by not just the offensive line, but who would all vote for him, but the entire team, he would clearly be voted captain again.
Yeah, and I think it's, a good point, too, while we're talking about Brendan Sorsby. People actually forgot that he got hurt last year versus Texas Tech. So, obviously, when you get hurt in a shootout game like that where you're not 100% going down the stretch and you see how that game ended.
What did he get hit by a flying burrito? I mean, or tortillas? Is that what injured him? That was so freaking annoying watching those things
down in Lubbock.
Oh, geez.
I know Dion started his press conference yesterday. Somebody asked him about Joey McGuire going out, spending all this like $25 million is what the reported NIL roster value is for Texas Tech. And he goes, well, hopefully y'all don't buy all these tortillas and just throw them at us.
They will. They were throwing them on the field last year.
It was really interesting to watch from the press boxes. Neil ran out on the field and grabbed those tortillas.
Neil's out there throwing them back out. Like, take that.
But
it was a nice place to watch a football game, though. Great atmosphere down there.
That's good.
And a shootout, as Neil pointed out. It was a hell of a game.
It was a hell of a game, and then the way it ended was not ideal. No. I mean, you had all these 10-second runoffs for stuff that wasn't Cincinnati's fault, essentially. But to see Brendan get hurt in that game, kind of, I know everyone questioned the glove that he wore last season. He was dealing with the thumb injury for the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Now that he's fully healthy, I think you're going to see what we saw the first 6-7 games of last season as well.
Grip it and rip it. So, what do you think if you go to year 3? What is the biggest adjustments that Sat has to make to not, it seemed like the last couple of years, it seemed like we start doing good, then we hit a point and we just kind of descend. What adjustments do you think he has to make, or has he talked about any kind of adjustments he has to make with this team to try to finish out strong? Neil, I'll let you go first.
I think the biggest thing has been the discipline, right? And I mean, we heard that at Big 12 Media Days too, with Greg McElroy talking to Brendan Sorsby on the ESPN stage, that they were 4 plays essentially away from being a 9-win season last year. And I think in order for that, we have heard Scott Satterfield preach about discipline. We have heard Gavin. We have heard all these guys preach about how disciplined this team has to be. I mean, we even asked Gavin about the play at Miami where Joe Royer's 70-yard touchdown gets neglected because Gavin was down the field by 6 inches for a block. And he did walk us through that play. He gave a fair explanation of what actually happened on that. He said there was a play call that didn't come in and it was an RPO. So he gave us the whole rundown in the interviews. But overall, when you have those games, like we talk about, there was one play versus Texas Tech where you lose 10 seconds and it was when a defensive holding. That's one of those plays where you circle and thinks, okay, if that play didn't happen essentially, or even with it happening, it shouldn't have hurt Cincinnati in that situation where you lose 10 seconds when you have the ball with 50 seconds left.
It damn near into the game.
So overall, I think that's been the biggest things. We've heard a lot about discipline. We've heard a lot about discipline on the special teams. I think right now, if you continue to say discipline like these guys have preached, there's a good chance we see this team make a giant big step in year 3.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. And Neil brought up the middle 8. And it was more the last 4 that did the Bearcats in last year. I go back to 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 of those games where something weird happened right before halftime that kind of put them behind the 8 ball. And again, you got a whole half to overcome that. So you got to put a little bit of blame on the team and the coaches and so on and so forth. But it was one of those things where, things are cruising along, man, let's just get into this half. If we can keep this ball moving, let's kick a field goal, go up by another 3, and then get out of here for halftime. And things just didn't go that way. And the other part, Neil brought this up earlier, is the off-season workouts. And discipline is part of what goes along with that. The way that Coach Nico has got these guys working, in the off-season, and they started right after they got back from winter break, in early January. And they've worked hard, and they're still out there, and they're doing all those kind of things. And so, I mean, I think it's a matter of, being in shape, which they haven't necessarily been out of shape. I don't mean it that way, but they're working extra hard in that particular area to make sure that they've got the stamina and the strength to get through that last 4 minutes, and then
finish strong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, it's that last 4, just, don't let anything stupid happen to you. And boy, it was a plethora of things that happened down the stretch there in those last 6-7 games that in some cases they were able to overcome it, and in a couple of cases they weren't.
Yeah. Now I got a couple questions here from Brad. He wants to know who is expected to be QB number 2.
I think it's safe to say that job's still Brady Lichtenberg's. I know everyone's going to be talking about the Samaj Jones, the Zeb Kinsley, who was their 2 freshman quarterback that they have brought in the last 2 recruiting classes. You like what you saw out of Samaj throughout spring camp. You could definitely see the progression, but I think it's safe to say as Brady heads into his redshirt senior season that he will be your quarterback too.
There you go.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think that's number one. He's been around a long time. He's not going anywhere. He's a solid number 2. He's not Brendan Sorsby, but at the same time, he doesn't hurt you a whole lot. They can alter the play calling around him, let him do what he can do, which he can still throw the football. He's not bad. And Samaj is a little bit different, shorter, more of a runner. Certainly they have plays in the playbook that they can use for him, although they would open up the whole offensive playbook for him. He can throw the ball as well. Matter of fact, you got a hole in your wall there, Jeff, in the bricks. He could probably put it through there. The guy throws the ball so daggone hard.
There you go.
I would agree with Neil all the way. That would be the pecking order of the top 3, and hopefully, it's a good, healthy year for Brendan Sorsby.
Question here for Jim here. Crib Keeper, Mr. Kelly, did it used to drive you crazy in the 80s when the University of Cincinnati was known more as UC than the Bearcat nickname?
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that, because for a long, long time now, I have gone out of my way to say Cincinnati or the University of Cincinnati. And I do that because a good example would be we're in Boulder, Colorado last year, right, for the game against Colorado. And you look up at the scoreboard, and what do you see? UC. What does UC stand for? Well, it's actually University of Colorado. It's actually Colorado University, but they go by UC. UC Medical Center. UC this, UC that. So from that standpoint, I've been doing it for a while. I think that's a really good point. The Bearcats is certainly, if that's said, you know who they're talking about, right? And not that you're confused who UC is when you hear it on the radio broadcast or something. And, and I go back to Dan Hord's iconic call at Notre Dame.
Oh,
yeah. You see that.
I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about that. That was awesome.
And that was the perfect use of it. And thank you for that question. But I do believe the University of Cincinnati's come a long way, both in football, obviously, when we go back to 2008, 9, and 10, those years that were so good. And then, of course, 21, 22, 23, where those years were so good. And there's a lot of good years in between, too. I don't want to slight anybody else. The football program has gone up, but the school, from the time I went there in the mid-'70s, has become a really good educational institution. And it deserves all the rankings that it can get. So appreciate the question.
Yeah, when Dan said, "Did you see that?" That was the first victory lap I did around my cul-de-sac here with the Bearcat flag. That was the first one. I'm like, "Yeah, I saw that." Took off running. It was awesome.
You didn't even rip a hamstring running around the circle.
Hey, so you're saying there's a chance I can make it through the softball game?
There is a chance.
Yes.
Stretch first.
Oh, so trust me, I've been stretching the last couple of weeks to prepared for this. So we'll see that. All right, so Neil, I'll let you start with this one. But key players to watch for the 2025 season: returning players and impact players.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the key players: Joe Royer, Gavin Gerhardt, Brendan Sorsby, and then you have
Raider guys.
And then
we don't know about yet.
And then Dante Corleone. So that's where I'm going to flip the page. I'm going to go with the defensive line for Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And I think a big thing that you need to look on, everyone's going to be honed in on Dante Corleone. Obviously, now that he's back fully healthy, I know he kind of discussed what last season was like a little bit on Tuesday down at the Star in Texas about saying like he wasn't really fully 100% till the end of the season, roughly. So overall, you get a healthy Dante Corleone back. But for Cincinnati, the player that I want to talk about is Micah Coleman on the defensive end position. People forget how big of a freak athlete he actually was at Eastern Michigan. 6'5", 250 pounds. He was poised to be a come in, play right away guy before he suffered the Achilles injury a season ago. Now that he's back fully healthy, he looked great in spring training. He finally got his feet wet a little bit after coming through there. And by the end of those 15 spring ball practices, from day 1 to 15, you could kind of see Micah Coleman get his confidence back. And then on top of it, they go out and they add defensive ends in the portal. They bring in a guy like Jalen White-McLean. You get the development of Marquez Parker again. That defensive line room is now taking a full step forward. You get Jalen Hunt healthy again. So I expect Cincinnati to find ways to disrupt the passer and kind of help guys out like Dante Corleone. But I'm looking forward to Micah Coleman having a huge season for Cincinnati, especially off that edge rusher. He can do so much because he's so athletic. But overall, when you add that kind of playmaker alongside a guy who's a run stopper like Dante Corleone, Jalen Hunt right there in the fold, it's going to be a fun time to see him get going there in the defensive line. And then the secondary, Matthew McDoom. I'm really excited to see Matthew McDoom in action. Obviously, people were kind of talking about his nickname, obviously last name being McDoom. It's going to be interesting to see how he translates from Coastal Carolina, where he was one of the most sought-after defensive back transfers in this portal, and how does he come in and he fit right away in the Cincinnati defense?
So you're telling me we're hearing a lot of doom.
There's a good chance. There's a great chance.
Yeah, no question that the two preseason injuries last year on the D-line with Coleman and was it Hunt? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Jalen Hunt.
They both went down, and they were the projected starters at that point. And Corleone coming off the I won't call it an injury, but the situation he had to deal with his lung. And he was admittedly overweight a little bit, and he's lost some weight this year, even though he had a 35-ounce steak, two of them.
Two of them, yeah. It's crazy.
That being said, that D line, if I look at the two areas that I think you'll see the most improvement this year is the defensive line, number one. And secondly is the secondary, as Neil just pointed out. The linebackers were solid last year. Those guys are virtually back. So they've got a really good linebacking crew. The secondary, who is in the second year of the second year of this 3-3-5 defense of Tyson Veit. They look so much more comfortable in the spring than they did last season. You could see them struggling, and there would be times when, somebody would go back to pass, and you're like you're watching the secondary, and it was like watching a checkers game or a chess game. You saw somebody standing still, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm supposed to be over there, and they would move to that, that outside third on the right hash, outside the right hash. They didn't. It's not that they didn't have it down mentally, but you hear the term, play fast, and what you want there is to be able to react, not to be able to have to think about it. And so I think they're going to be much, much better on the defensive side of the ball. And the one thing, and Neil brought it up, and watching Corleone last year, he was double teamed every play. But what would happen was he would literally use his weight, kind of force himself in. Let's say it was a guard tackle double team. He would use his weight to hold up against those guys, and he knew he was doing his job by taking two offensive linemen out of the play. Mm-hmm. But that's all he was able to do. I mean, occasionally he got in there. But the last but not least thing that I think Neil brought up that is, to me, so important and has been missing is that edge rusher, that pass rusher. In that 3-3-5, yes, you bring a linebacker up from time to time, and you can surprise some people. But the Bearcats didn't do enough of that last year, or weren't able to be successful at enough of it last year to really make some issues for the opposing quarterback. And that's where you can really make some. That's going to help your secondary if you're able to put pressure on the quarterback and have him get happy feet back there, or not be comfortable. And if they're able to do that, it really is going to up their game defensively.
Natty Ron here has got a good question here. I think Neil, you kind of touched on this at the beginning of this, but where did Cincinnati upgrade the most at? What position?
I would definitely say the offensive line and the defensive line for sure. I think those two, obviously you throw secondary and wide receiver in there as well, but you look back, I mean, they really upgraded just about every position that they needed. But I think offensive line is going to be the big thing. And I know I was actually talking to now Miami Dolphins running back Ollie Gordon yesterday in our one-on-one interview, and we talked about the importance of Big 12 running backs, right? We talked about how deep that class was last year, what makes this conference have the best running backs, and it starts up front in the offensive line. So me personally, I think it's the offensive line. Joe Cotton is a huge addition. Tarantayo, also a huge addition. And then you have the development of Evan Tangensdahl. And right there, you got your three guys set with Gavin Gerhardt at center. And then if you can get a good season from DeAndre Buford or an Ethan Green or whoever might be out there on the right tackle position, there's a chance Cincinnati's offensive line could be the best offensive line in the Big 12 conference, to say the least.
Ooh, I like that. Good.
That's a big statement right there.
Yeah.
But they did. And Tangenstahl's the one that. So we're talking about the transfer portal, and here's a guy that's been around for a few years. And every year, Coach Satterfield, when I say every year, it's only been 2. Now we're in 3. He's a guy that's going to get some playing time. And boy, it's here. And he's going to get a chance to step up and be one of the guys. And I like the fact that Neil feels that strongly about him. I think they're much improved over what we saw going into spring ball, because we knew that there was some huge losses there with those guys heading to the NFL.
Now, Neil brought up Primetime was talking about the NIL money and stuff. And one thing he brought up on that as well is, and it kind of makes sense to me, to try to rein in some of this money, but I don't know if you can with everything else, autographs and all that stuff. But he suggested a salary cap. They got to do something somehow to try to rein this in. Is there any way that you guys think they could try to, I don't want to say control the money, but try to make it a little more even playing field, a salary cap or something like that here in the future? Good, Neil.
I think you could do it. Don't get me wrong, but I think it would be 2-3 years down the road. I don't think it's
Right.
going to be anytime soon because
No,
with the house settlement law, nobody really – there's so many gray areas, right? And I think that's what a lot of coaches even said at Big 12 media days. Like, we got to keep it fair. We got to keep it equal. But right now, there's a lot of feelings and a sense of urgency that teams are out there kind of doing things that they aren't supposed to be doing in terms of paying players to come to their university because of all the gray areas within this new house settlement law. And then on top of it, you have the rev sharing. So overall, until there gets more clarification on what a house settlement law would look like, until this goes into court more deeper, and then the rev sharing takes full effect, it's going to be interesting. But I don't think we see a salary cap for probably 2 to 3 more years. But I think it was cool that Dion mentioned it. Don't get me wrong.
Well, he mentioned it because he wasn't getting the players. That's why he mentioned it.
Well, it's crazy to think about because everybody judged Dion last year for paying players in the transfer portal.
Right.
And then Joey McGuire comes in with an influx of Texas money, to say the least. And now there's reports of his roster being up north of $20 million, up there with Ohio State. And, I mean, based on the additions they did this past season in the transfer portal, it's safe to say they're going to be the favorites to potentially give Arizona State a run for their money to kick off the conference. So, I don't know. A salary cap would be nice, though, but if you're going to have a salary cap, then what do these smaller market schools like an Iowa State or a Cincinnati might get in that sense? You know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to keep it fair with the salary cap, do it.
You got to have revenue sharing then, right?
Yeah, so little baby steps as far as the rules.
Right.
And it is, and Neil's point's well taken. It's going to be a while. And what happens is every time you make a move and they try to do something, somebody turns around and sues. And then it gets tied up in court, and then you've got the appeals and this and that. But they do need, clearly, obviously, everybody. You know, here's the thing about college football right now. If you're invested in a team, okay, you hate the transfer portal and you hate NIL because it disrupts your team. All right. And there's all kinds of things. It can be a plus or it can be a minus, but most people hate it. If you step back from that, you're not affiliated. In my case, let's say, okay, and I would never say this in real life that I'm not a Bearcats fan anymore because, I always will be. But if I'm watching a game, let's just say, okay, there's another Thursday night game on later in the year, and I'm just watching that game, and we'll say it's, a Texas Tech versus LSU. It's a good game. Yeah. It's a hell of a sport. But I don't know anybody in that team. I'm not invested. I don't care what the LSU quarterback, where he was last year, those kind of things. But if you're invested in that team, you hate this stuff. And they're trying to change it a little bit. I will tell you this because, this is my 50th year from my senior year of playing football. And back in 1975, which was my last year, teams were paying people to play. It was totally
really?
Yeah, no, it's a surprise. It's a surprise. It wasn't Cincinnati. Let's put it that way.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I got $15 a month for laundry money, and that was it.
Woo, you were rolling then, Jim. You were rolling.
And true confession, that $15 went for beer, not for laundry. So
yes.
Anyway, they're trying to. It's like putting the toothpaste back in the tube, or putting a lasso around the neck of the steer. You're trying to reel everything back in, but once things are out there, it's really hard to bring them back to where they were. Yeah,
exactly. That's going to be the thing that's it's hard is to rein it in, because even if you get a salary cap, they're going to figure out ways to get around it, autographs or merchandise or something.
Johnny Manziel beat NIL before anybody else.
Right.
He did.
Johnny Manziel can do it. Anybody can do it.
Right.
Because, that guy's a party animal, and he's getting $30,000 just for signing a couple autographs. So, there's going to be a lot of ways to get around it, but it's definitely going to be an interesting situation over the next few years.
Yeah.
They're going to try.
You can't worry about it. It's not going to go away. So just sit back and enjoy what, in my opinion, the world's greatest game in college football.
The thing is with NILs, to me, it actually, if you got the money, it spreads the talent out. Across, like you just said, Texas Tech, they got all kinds of talent now because they put a whole bunch of money in there. Texas Tech wouldn't have competed, or they've competed, but they're probably gonna be a really good team this year. At least they should be. That it was always Alabama winners, LSU. To me, it spreads it out more. So to me, it makes, as far as the competition goes, like you can have a random game, like you just said. Like these teams are gonna play each other more often too, which I like. Like you just said, Jim, Texas Tech, LSU, they're gonna play each other. the farther this goes, the less we're going to have, LSU versus the Sisters of the Poor or whatever like that. We're going to have more meaningful games throughout the whole college football. And that, to me, as a fan of college football, I think that makes the game even better because, I watch UC if they, no matter what, obviously, if they play a sorry team, I'm still going to watch them. But it's more fun watching a competitive team, especially if UC can beat them. But across the board, as far as college football goes, I think there's going to be more competitive games across the board than there has been. Now, one thing they did bring up at Big 12 Media Days is nip at night. Are they going to let us have one? I don't think we have one scheduled this year. Is that correct? There's none scheduled this year, right, Neil?
They didn't have one last year.
Yeah, I know they didn't have one last year. They haven't had one in a while.
They had an opportunity with the first two. Well, I shouldn't say the first two because Nebraska would fall into this category, but the other two, the two
actual home games, right?
Those are ESPN Plus games where they're allowed to set their own time. The university's allowed to do that. Now there are other issues going on there, like what other games are on Saturday night, so they don't always have that ability to put a night game in. And I thought maybe the Bowling Green game, because obviously the competition's a little bit better than Northwestern State. I think that's the other one.
Right.
And you got the Eddie George factor coming in with him being the new coach up there. There's some interest in that game, clearly. But here's where it goes. And, it is all about television. Once you get to that next game, which is the Iowa State game, which we've talked enough about, it really comes down to, okay, who's playing well? What are the matchups that week?
Right.
And the Big 12 is going to make those decisions based on, who's sitting there at 3-0, which Cincinnati could be, as Neil pointed out earlier. And Iowa State could be as well. I don't know what their pre-league schedule is, but that being said, you got 2 3-0 teams. You might find yourself on at 8:00 at night, maybe so. And you got nip at night. I would say there's a lot more chance this year with 7 home games, even though 2 of them the times are already set. You got 5 more where the times have not been assigned. And particularly if you're playing well, that's when you're going to get that 3:30 or that 7:00, 8:00 game. So time will tell. We'll see how the season goes.
And I've told you this multiple times when you've been on the show, Jim, that I will take nip at night atmosphere versus anybody. I know the stadium's not as big as the SEC and Ohio State, but that atmosphere, it being in that hole in the middle of campus, there's nothing like it. I mean, it is awesome.
Yeah, it's a clear advantage for the Bearcats.
Yes,
it's a clear advantage. Even and this was an afternoon game. Tawee Parker, when he was at Walker, not Parker. When he was at Oklahoma before he moved on to Wisconsin, he said that scared him. And it was a hell of a game anyway.
It was
Cincinnati Oklahoma game, but it was an equalizer. Oklahoma clearly the better team that year, and with Dylan Gabriel a quarterback, and they went on and struggled that game a little bit, and part of it was because of that crowd at Nippert Stadium. It wasn't nip at night, but it was still a loud crowd that day.
It was. All right, I want to get you guys out here on this. Did you guys hear? I'm sure you have. The WWE and Big 12 are teaming up. So apparently, in random it's going to be here in Cincinnati. I don't remember what weekend it is. But the random Big 12 weekends, there's going to be a WWE SmackDown on Friday night, the night before the Big 12 home game. Is that going to bring more fans? Do you think it's going to bring more fans to the football games, or is it just to give fans something else to do while they're coming to here in Cincinnati to go watch wrestling? And how do you guys feel about it? I'm a wrestling fan. I think it's cool as hell. I love it. Go ahead, Jim. What do you think?
Well, I would say, and Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that is the Iowa State weekend as well.
It's the Iowa State.
The Friday night before. So, and that's Parents Weekend at UC as well. And I'm working on a reunion for my team, and that weekend is pretty much sold out everywhere in the city. Well, not downtown or anything like that. There's hotel rooms around. But that being said, I think you're going to have a whole lot of other people in town. Whether that brings additional people to the football game, I don't know if that correlates. I definitely think the fact that they're back here in Cincinnati is going to bring some people down to the arena downtown. And certainly, as you saw this past spring, a lot of the Bearcat players, and a matter of fact, we talked about Brendan Sorsby all for an hour now, and we didn't mention his new haircut.
The Mohawk, baby.
Yeah, I didn't get to mention that. You're right. You're right.
So if that wasn't Friday night before a game, we might see him in the ring.
Right. Exactly.
But in this case, he's not going to be in the ring because they'll be over there in team meetings and everything. But anyway, I don't know what it'll do to the attendance, but I like the fact that again, that's the thing about Brett Yormark. He just doesn't say no to anything. Let's talk about it. Let's see if it's plausible. Yeah,
it's outside the box thinking. What's it going to hurt? Neil, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's huge for not only the conference, but I think it's huge for the city of Cincinnati to have that before that game. But second of all, they sent Big E out to Dallas.
That's right. You interviewed him. That's right.
Big E knows ball. And I'll say that. He knows ball. He was a great representative to sit there and kind of discuss what the WWE partnership was. And heck, him and I we had nearly a 7-minute one-on-one, just him and I, talking about how cool it was to see. Well, first of all, he hadn't seen the picture of the Cincinnati guys sitting ringside with the WWE belt, with Joe Royer holding it up. Guys like Dick Golday, Brendan, Joe, Dante, Gavin, all in.
I thought a couple months ago when they were here. Yeah.
But so we were talking off the record a little bit about it. I asked him if he's seen the picture and how cool it was to see him there. He was like, it was cool to see them there, but I didn't see the picture, so I showed him the picture afterwards. And he was like, man, I would love to see Dante or Gavin in the ring if things didn't plan out for football. So, I mean, if Dante the Godfather doesn't work out in football,
he's already got a wrestling name.
He's got a name. Yep.
Yeah,
he's already got his wrestling name perfectly set. But no, it was great to see him out there and engaging with people. He was awesome to kind of interview and kind of talk to. But I think it's huge, right? And I know, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but Cam Jones, former Cincinnati offensive lineman, signed a deal with the WWE once he finished college football, that he would be making that transition towards the wrestling aspect as well. So, I mean, I think it provides these guys another opportunity where, hey, if football doesn't pan out for these guys, that now if you still want to be athletic or you want to get into the entertainment side, you still have an opportunity to go out and do so and still make some decent money in the process because of how big WWE is. So overall, I think it was huge, but yeah, to see Big E talk ball for about 20 minutes was freaking awesome. It was awesome.
You got something to add on that, Jim?
To Neil's point on Cam Jones, he got into that. I call it a junior program. Obviously, they're not juniors when you're 21 years old or 22 years old, but that training thing. And he would take some time off on spring break and so on and go to their camps and everything. I don't know what his status is now, but just think about it. If you look at football players, and Corleone, I agree with you. If it doesn't work out, the Godfather being in the ring would be great. But Cam Jones, 6'9", I don't remember what he weighed at the time. He was not the heaviest guy in the world, 310, something like that. Or Lorenz Metz would be a good guy, even though he's a nice guy, little.
Maybe a baby face.
Exactly, baby face. But still, I think it's great. And, anytime you can partner like that, I think it's great. And how many people are coming in for Parents Week and go to the WWE? I don't really know that at this particular point in time. But I guarantee you they're going to have a heck of a crowd downtown for that event on Friday night.
Well, it's going to be fun. I can't wait for it. I thought that was cool. And yeah, Neil texted me and sent me the picture of Big E and he was talking to him. I was like, that's cool as hell. I couldn't believe that. But guys, we've been on for an hour and 3 minutes. I appreciate you guys. Jim, you are a legend. I love having you on the show. I appreciate you. You do a great job on the radio. You got any music venues coming up you want to plug before I let you go?
Yeah, so I'm playing a little bit less this year for a number of reasons. But I don't have anything this weekend. But you can find my schedule at jimkellymusic.com. Just go to shows and you'll see my schedule for the next few months. It starts to slow down as well. Weekends in the fall, unfortunately, I've got something else going on. I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately, I've got something else.
Yeah. And we're getting close to it. I can't wait. Yeah. All right, Jim, appreciate you, man. And I'm going to hit you up during the season again. We'll have to do this again.
Absolutely. Anytime, Jeff.
Thanks, Jim. Take it easy. Neil, my man, plug some stuff before I let you go, brother.
Yeah, man. So obviously I'll plug some stuff here. Obviously you guys know me as my work over at rivals.com, but unfortunately once Rivals and On3 merged at the start of July, we are no longer partners with Rivals, which we have now transitioned to a company called Lockerverse. So I'm currently working on setting up the full website over here with JT. We're got all the Big 12 Media Days conference. I'm going to have some stories that we're going to be throwing up over there over the next 2 nights. As soon as I get off here, I'm going to cook some dinner and get to type in from some Big 12 Media Days. We're going to type tomorrow all day. So overall, you can head on over there. It's the Front Office News. We're with Lockerverse. You can find that at my social media at MeyerNeil6 over on Twitter. You can find me co-hosting the Bearcat Blitz podcast with Russ Heltman. But yeah, let's get after it. Let's have a good season with some Bearcat stuff. I know Jeff's looking forward to it, but yeah, continuing to check us out.
How good would it be if the Bearcat football was good and the Bengals football was good again? I miss those days. That'll be fun.
I do miss those days. Speaking of the Bengals, Jeff, have you been able to sit down and watch quarterback yet?
I just finished it. All
Man,
right,
I need to sit down and watch it. I couldn't do it while out of town, but
it's heartbreaking and frustrating, but it's still cool because you just go relive the games that you're like, son of a.
I've seen some of the clips, and it's like, first of all, them catching the mic'd up of Joe and Zach was freaking awesome. Everyone was like, they're over there yelling at each other.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I like it's vindication for me because I'm like, they're not. I said he's frustrated. I said, no, he's cussing Zach out. He wasn't cussing Zach out. He was frustrated with all the false starts. I'm like, I told you that's what it was. I was right.
Jeff, you and I were able to read the lips pretty well when that clip aired. But overall, I think it's great to kind of go behind the scenes and kind of see that as well. So hopefully I'll find some time here over the weekend, hopefully to kind of sit down and watch that. Obviously, still, I'm currently looking at my 2 suitcases from Dallas between my book bag and suitcase that is still unpacked over here on the floor. And then on top of it, I have a load of laundry that is not done from before I left. So I'm currently dealing with the giant mess over here that I gotta handle and get back to business here and kind of get that mind switch back to, okay, I gotta work again. So
there you go. Well, Neil, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for I enjoyed the views you sent me from your hotel room.
No, that hotel was
outside, not views inside, outside.
Jeff, you know how cool it was? You were sitting by the pool. You could sit by the pool in the morning, catch a little bit of sun. 90-second walk, and you're in the Star, like you're at the venue.
That's
like,
pretty damn cool.
You literally just walked downstairs and you were through the front doors and you were right there. It was a great time. I mean, it was also a great experience. We saw Jeannie Buss in the hotel one day. We were we're like, what the hell is Jeannie Buss doing in Dallas? But nope, we saw Jeannie Buss in the hallway. I got in the elevator with Mike Gundy. Yeah, it was a good time.
Well, I told you, bro, if you ever need a big assistant, just hook me up.
Need a little bodyguard.
Yeah. Why is everybody? Corey tells me that. Everybody wants to make me the bodyguard. I don't get it. Anyway, appreciate you, Neil. We'll get you back on closer to the football season. We'll be talking about some Bearcats, some Bengals. It's gonna be some fun. Take it easy, brother.
Yes, sir.
See you. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. As always, I'm excited about Bearcat football. I am hoping to God that they make the playoffs this year. Sorsby, like I said, I think he is the Big 12 quarterback. That is interesting that Neil confirmed that his thumb was hurting last year. That could be one of the reasons he wasn't throwing the ball downfield. Like I said, I am not all out on Satterfield, but I am. If he doesn't make the bowl game, I will be saying it's time to move on. But we'll see what happens. I can't wait. Football is getting so much closer. You smell that? It smells like football. We got the Bearcats starting here in 3 weeks. Got the Bengals starting here in about 2.5 weeks. It's going to be awesome. Thanks for watching. I've been live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch. You can follow me on all those along Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. I will be pulling off the Saturday later on tonight, putting on the podcast on BeanPod, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Leave a comment and a 5-star review so more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. And shout out to sponsors of the show. They are as follows: Priority Lawn and Landscaping. Have you called them yet? If not, why not call Johnny? Tell him you want him to come over to your house, cut your grass, clean up your flower beds, trim your bushes, all that stuff. Easiest way to do it is, like I said, call him at 513-430-6114. That's 513-430-6114. You can also follow them on Facebook. Also, shout out to T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out the website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. And, of course, Meyer Window, Door, and more. Their website is www.meyercincinnati.com for all your window and door needs. I got them in my house. I highly recommend you get them in yours. Energy efficient, easy to clean, great looking windows. Meyer, window, door, and more. And of course, my favorite brewery, Moorline Lager House. Get on down there this week. It's Cincy Burger Week. They got 3 of them down there, all delicious. I plan on getting down there to try at least one of them sometime this week. So check out Moorline Lager House. Thursday night tonight is Rocket on the Roebling. They have that each and every Thursday night. Pretty sure we're going to be doing something with the tailgates there this year. I cannot wait to give the full announcement, but should be coming sometime soon. But between now and then, get on down to Moorline Lager House and tell them Ice sent you. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. Tomorrow, I don't have a guest. Tomorrow, I'm thinking it's just going to be you and me on a fun Football Friday show. Unless something else happens, but we can just talk ball, talk weekend, talk beer, talk whatever you want tomorrow. You guys hit me up with some topics you want to discuss tomorrow at Jeff A. Trenopole on Twitter. Other than that, remember, as always, one thing, as Jeremy Dean would say, one thing and one thing only. Hooday for life. Throw it up. That's your sports, baby. See ya!
Another great show. You guys still here? The show's over. You can come back tomorrow. I'm out of here. See ya.